Well, one of the big sticking points, as if there was another sticking point for the reform effort, continues to be abortion. Correspondent Shannon Bream reports on where that issue fits in now that the House has settled on its version of a reform bill.
A fight over federal funding for abortion nearly derailed health care reform in the House. But pro-life lawmakers led by Democratic Congressman Bart Stupak ultimately succeeded in banning that funding stream. And the debate now heads to the Senate, where there is some bipartisan support for a similar measure.
I expect that the bill that will be brought to the floor will ensure that no federal funds are used for abortion.
I think that there is a broad support to say that federal money should not be used to pay for abortions.
But there is clearly not a consensus yet.
This ban puts the health of women and young girls at grave risk. Proposing that women instead purchase a separate abortion rider is not only discriminatory, but ridiculous.
And while he continues to push for a bill by the end of the year, President Obama acknowledges that settling the issue will require complex negotiations.
We're not looking to change what is a core principle that has been in place for a very long time, which is federal dollars are not used to subsidize abortions.
But pro-life advocates say the president may have a tough time reconciling his vocal support for groups like Planned Parenthood with their demands that any measure banning federal funding for abortions be stripped from health care legislation.
The president keeps repeating that he doesn't want to see federal funding for abortion in the health care reform package. The bottom line truth is, if that is true, you have to have an explicit ban on federal funding in the language of the bill.
Regardless of what winds up in the Senate measure, the bills from both houses of Congress will ultimately have to go into conference to be blended into a single version. Today, pro-choice Democratic Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz said she is confident that the final measure that emerges will not contain any restriction on federal funding for abortions.
She isn't the only pro-choice Democrat working to undo the Stupak amendment. Congresswoman Diana DeGette says she's collected 40 signatures for a letter to Democratic leaders pledging to vote down the final health care reform bill if it still contains the Stupak amendment, and those votes could be crucial. Brett.
Shannon, thank you. Well,